This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So the Browns and Kevin Stefanski just made an interesting announcement, and an announcement that I think some people have wanted to hear for a long time, if I'm to judge by the comments that I get on some of my videos about Kevin Stefanski, which is that Kevin Stefanski is no longer going to be the play caller for the Cleveland Browns for the rest of the season. It's going to be Ken Dorsey. And there's a lot of questions on why this would happen and what does this say about the future, and is this a conspiracy at foot? I've heard people suggest that Ken Dorsey being the play caller suggests that Kevin Stefanski is going to get fired soon, and this is them trying to phase him out. I've heard people suggest that Ken Dorsey being the play caller is some kind of long conspiracy play to make it easier to point the finger at Ken Dorsey in order to get him fired. And I think the answer is simpler than that. So what I want to do in this video is talk about what a play caller change actually means versus what we usually assume it means, why it makes sense that the Browns would want to change their play caller, and what does that change in play caller mean for the immediate future when it comes to Jameis Winston, who plays a specific style of quarterback. So let's rewind back to the top of that. Why would the Browns change their play caller, and why do teams in general change their play caller? Because it's not a rare thing to happen for a team to change their play caller. The main reason a team would change a play caller is because there's some kind of procedural reason for changing it. I've done plenty of videos about play calling because I think the way we look at play calling as fans sometimes is not the correct way or an accurate view of it. We kind of view the play caller as the guy who's like writing the offense up as it goes, right? Like we're just selecting these plays out of thin air and calling them, and that's what makes up the offense. And if you change a play caller, this offense is going to look dramatically different. Remember this conversation coming up a lot when it came to Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt. Those two had very similar offensive philosophies. I didn't think a change in play caller was going to be a change in offense. And I think that's the important thing to remember here. The Browns aren't changing the offense. The offense is going to be the same offense that they've been running, this Kevin Stefanski, Ken Dorsey hybrid of an offense. They're still going to do a lot of play action. They're still going to do a lot of stuff out of shotgun. They're probably going to run the ball a lot more now that they have a backup quarterback in, and they're not trying to see if their quote unquote franchise quarterback can be a franchise quarterback. But it's going to be the same offense. You're going to see the same bunch formations, the same, the same personnel changes. Like it's going to be the same offense. That's never what a change in play caller is. And I think sometimes we confuse a change of play caller for a change of offense. And we also confuse the reason a team might do this. And the biggest reason a team does change a play caller is because there's something procedurally wrong with getting the play in. I think that's the most simple explanation for why the Browns decided to do this. See, lost in all the conspiracy about Ken Dorsey, is he going to be in charge of this team? Are the Browns going to fire Kevin Stefanski to hire Mike Vrabel or something silly like that? The truth is the Browns had a lot of pre-snap penalties to start this year. And last week, they had 1 million of the pre-start penalties. And I think changing play callers is their solution for that. because they might have diagnosed that the problem with the pre-snap penalties and the late in especially like the illegal shifts and motions is because the play call simply just isn't getting in fast enough. If you watch these Cleveland Browns games, you would know that it's always a race on the game clock to get the ball off, no matter who's been the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson, DTR, Jameis Winston. These play calls aren't coming in fast. And I think part of that is because Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski are having a conversation about what play they're going to call before they call the play. This is not something that existed last year when Kevin Stefanski was the sole play caller. It's not something that existed in the previous years. But this year, when you've added that extra layer of complexity between Kevin Stefanski's input and Ken Dorsey's input on every play call, this has been a major issue, getting the play call in on time. The Browns have had to call multiple timeouts on offense because they're trying to avoid getting a delay of game. They have had multiple pre-snap penalties, derail multiple drives, right? And we're talking about the illegal shifts. We're talking about the illegal formations. We're talking about those kind of penalties. I think this is what this is here to cut down. And Kevin taking himself out of the play calling process, so it's just going to be Ken Dorsey gets the play call into the quarterback. That's going to streamline and simplify things and make it easier for everybody on offense to get set, and there's going to be less confusion about what the team is going for offensively because it's just Ken Dorsey getting the play call in on the headset. So you're not going to see, hopefully, the same level of confusion on offense, because I think this is an accurate point of criticism when you're 7 weeks into the season and you're still getting these procedural penalties. Something about the process of how that play comes in has to change. And I think it's fun to look at this change and think about the bigger conspiracies around it, right? It's Jimmy Haslam trying to force Kevin Stefanski out of town. And this isn't the sexy answer, but this is probably the likely answer on this. This is about trying to fix the procedural penalties. I don't think this is a mistake that this happens the game after. I don't think it's a mistake that this is happening literally after the game where the Browns had their second most procedural penalties outside the opener in this season. Like, I don't think that is a coincidence. It makes sense that this would be the case. Now let's talk about who Ken Dorsey is as a play caller, and will we do a lot of play action, right? Because that's one of the concerns. You want to play Jameis Winston? Okay. You want Jameis Winston to do what we associate with the Kevin Stefanski offense, which is West Coast principles, high-low, a lot of play action. And I don't think there's as much to worry here as I initially thought. Kind of digged into some of the play calling stuff for Ken Dorsey. And in 2022, Josh Allen ranked 21st in dropbacks on play action. 24.5% of his dropbacks were play action. To put that in context, Jacoby Brissett's dropback rate was 21.6 in 2022 with Kevin Stefanski, which ranked about 25th in the NFL. If we go to 2023, the first 11 weeks of the season before Ken Dorsey got fired, or 10 weeks of the season before Ken Dorsey got fired, Josh Allen was in 24.7 of his dropbacks were play action, and they ranked 8th in the NFL. You compare that to, some of the Kevin Stefanski numbers. It's not the same. Kevin loves play action a little bit more than Ken Dorsey, right? Joe Flacco, 32.1% play action percentage. That's an insane number. That was number one in the league for 2023. Deshaun Watson that same year, 26.8 play action percentage, 9th in the league. Baker Mayfield, 28.9. So yeah, they're still going to run a quarter of this offense in play action, more than likely. Like at least a quarter to a fifth of this offensive plays are still going to be play action. So if you're worried about Jameis not being put in play action situations, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I also think that this could potentially be a fit for Jameis Winston when you just look at the philosophy for what Ken Dorsey wants in his offense. He's somebody who wants to push the ball deep. He's somebody who wants to get these chunk plays. He thrives at his best when you have a quarterback that can do that on a consistent basis. And Jameis Winston will at least try to get those chunk plays in deep balls there. So we might be in for a little bit more of wild Jameis, and that's going to include some wild throws and some what the F throws. You're going to see all kind of stuff out of Jameis Winston if they're pushing the ball downfield. But when it comes to Ken Dorsey being the play caller, I think this has more to do about the procedural stuff, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties. This is, I think, their solution for that. And it makes sense once you view it from that lens, right? Because I don't think this is about just straight up overall offensive performance, because it doesn't really make sense when you look at it through that lens, because the offensive performance has been more about who has or has not been playing quarterback, more so than it has been about what plays are specifically being called. We've looked at the plays here. Guys are open on a lot of these plays. It's just the execution isn't there at the quarterback position. Now that the quarterback has changed, I think that there is a chance for any of the plays that get called by either Ken Dorsey or Kevin Stefanski to have more success, because you're going to have quarterback play that hopefully can see that some of these guys are open a little bit easier. So that's going to be interesting to see, but I think this has a lot more to do with the procedural penalties than people are going to give it credit for. That's my thoughts on that. Another piece of news here is that Hines is not going to be brought off the non-football injury list. Now, Jack Duffin on Twitter made the point that this might have to be due about the Browns' 8-player limit when it comes to bringing guys back off of injured reserve and bringing guys back off of the non-football injury list, which I do think does play a part in this whole thing. I am partial to that argument there because Hines just doesn't seem necessary here. So he's not going to play this year. I think that has to do with the amount of players that were on injured reserve or non-football injury list, right? The Browns had to bring back Nick Chubb off of NFI. They had to bring back Michael Dunn off of NFI. They also have had to bring back other players off the injured reserve list, right? Wyatt Teller is coming off the IR. Juan Thornhill came off IR. We're already at 4. You only get 8 of these guys that can come off of both of those lists. I believe there was somebody else who came off IR. I know David Njoku never was on IR, but I believe there's another player that came off of IR as well here for the Cleveland Browns. So they're just running thin on the amount of people they can bring back, and bringing back Nyheim Hines when he's probably not going to get a ton of touches doesn't make a ton of sense for this team. So I think that's the case here for Nyheim. I think he's eligible to come back. He can come back and play if he wanted to. His injury is fine. This is more of a semantic thing because the Browns can only bring back 8 people off this list, and they want to have some spots available so if somebody else goes down during the season, they can bring those guys back. Because what you don't want to be is, imagine a situation where you have a injury go down this week or next week and you used up all of your 8 spots to bring guys back off of injured reserve. And now, if a guy's going to be out for 6 weeks, you just kind of have to eat him on the roster for 6 weeks until he could come back, or put him on the non-designated to return injured reserve list, which is going to make somebody have a season-ending injury without really having a season-ending injury. It's just a semantic play here for them. Wyatt Teller, also, they feel pretty good about his ability to come back. He's coming off IR this week. And that's a huge deal for this team that wants to run block. Michael Dunn struggled last week, and this Browns offensive line just needs to be healthy. Now, Jed Wills did not practice today. He's day-to-day, same thing with Ethan Posick. And then I think that at some point, James Hudson is going to come off IR here too. So another guy that you're going to have to use an IR return spot for. So this offensive line just needs to get healthy. And I think that'll be a lot better for Nick Chubb and get him going. I think also Nick Chubb getting that game under his belt really going to be helpful for him going forward. I'll give the Browns this. I didn't think there was a way for them to make me excited to watch a 1-6 team play the Baltimore Ravens, but they have figured out a way to make me intrigued. because now the Browns are going to be doing, some interesting stuff. Jameis Winston's first start of the year. We're going to get Wyatt Teller back with Nick Chubb. That should be an interesting combo for this team. And then also when you look at it from the perspective of like, what is Ken Dorsey as a play caller going to look like, and how different is that actually going to look to what Kevin Stefanski did? I don't think it's going to be that different, right? I think the play sheet is still the play sheet. The last thing I want to say about the whole play caller ordeal is something that I've said all the way back into the summer of this year, which is to remember that play calling has less to do about the actual offense you run and more to do about the process in which that offense gets out on the field. I've always made the point that if the Browns felt like the process wasn't going to be smooth enough with Kevin as a play caller, they had to switch it up and make it Ken Dorsey, right? Whoever the play sheet is, whoever is the author of the play sheet should probably be calling the plays. And what it looks like this season is that Ken Dorsey has been the author of the play sheets all season. This looks like Ken Dorsey's offense. They're trying to do some stuff that Ken Dorsey has regularly done. There's obviously some Kevin stuff sprinkled in there and some Kevin influence in there, but this has largely looked like Ken Dorsey's offense. And if that's the case, it makes a ton of sense that Ken Dorsey's going to call these plays going forward, because not only is it going to be a more streamlined process, Ken Dorsey's going to probably be able to come to these decisions a lot quicker because these are the plays that he likes. So this makes sense that they're going to do this. If this gets the play call in faster, if we're seeing this ball being able to be snapped with 6 or 7 seconds left on the game clock versus 1 or 2 seconds, that's going to be a huge difference. And also think about this. The Browns' offensive line is already struggling. Now imagine how much the struggle increases when you're consistently giving the defensive line a head start because you have to snap the ball at 1 because you have ran the play clock all the way down trying to just get the play call in and finish some motions. Like, the head start you've been giving to other defensive lines also factors into the pressure that you've been giving up on the offensive line as well. So I think that's why the Browns made this move. I've been able to think about it long enough to make sense of it. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.